I'd like to start off by saying, for the most part, I'm down with anyone believing in anything. It's your life, and who am I to tell you how to live it? What I am not down with is spreading false information and ideas. Time and time again throughout my life, these two philosophies aggressively collide, and I find myself questioning which side of the spectrum I fall on. A believer or a skeptic? Fair warning, for the purposes of this video, I've chosen the latter. Enter Gaia. What is Gaia exactly? Well, according to Wikipedia, Gaia in Greek mythology is the personification of the earth and one of the Greek primordial deities. Gaia is the ancestral mother of all life. She is the mother of Uranus, from whose sexual union she bore the Titans, the Cyclopses, and the Giants of Pontus, from whose union she bore the primordial sea gods. But that's not what we're talking about today. I'm talking about Gaia, the streaming service similar to Netflix that I've been getting a surprising number of ads for recently. The service has you pay money to see series and films about all things enlightenment, meditation, and yoga. Now, I'm down with the meditation and yoga part of this service because those have been proven to be beneficial by experts. Where I start having my doubts about this service is with the enlightenment part. Let's watch the trailer on their website so I can show you what I mean.
Are you ready for Gaia?
How can we be resilient in a world that's growing more volatile by the day?
Don't buy into the fear. It's about waking up.
So time and time again throughout these ads, you're going to hear the cliche of waking up, which I've heard way too many times in my life to be effective at persuading me, so we're kind of already at a bad start.
Explore the world's largest library of conscious media with thousands of films and original programs.
People all over the planet are waking up.
There's the waking up thing again. Also, did you catch what the narrator said earlier?
Explore the world's largest library of conscious media.
Conscious media? I mean, I guess I know what that is given the context of this ad, but they just kind of throw the term out there like it's something that new people are going to understand. So I decided to look it up, and as far as I can tell, it is a term exclusively used by Gaia. They even have several subsidiaries named after the term, so they just used a term that they made up to sell a service to a new customer that likely won't understand what the term means. Also, while I was looking for Gaia's Wikipedia page trying to find this list, I discovered that pseudo-archaeology is apparently a term. What do you mean, pseudo-archaeology? Aliens built the pyramids? What?
Inside, he was able to detect the fetus of some creature. It is clear by scientists that it's something different. It is not human.
Okay, I'm open to the idea of aliens because the universe is just so unfathomably huge. That said, I don't know if they've made technology to visit the planet Earth, so...
In ancient times, the Atlanteans were said to have an advanced technology and power supply based on crystals.
This is getting out of control now. Atlanteans. Atlanteans! Why the hell do people think Atlantis was real and not just folklore? It's like people believing in ghosts or Bigfoot.
Tonight is for squatching.
Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. Oh my god.
Both of us heard two voices. It seemed like women's voices, but it was so quick.
Never mind, people believe in anything. Also, crystals. No, I don't think so. They're just pretty looking rocks.
Our potential to access the supermind is no longer simply theoretical.
Now we are proposing a new beginning, a new history for human beings.
Nuclear holocaust. Wow, that was a trip. Now, I know I was harsh on asserting my opinion on things that I deemed to be questionable, but I like to think that I'm a somewhat open-minded guy. So instead of just sitting here and picking apart a single ad for this service, I'm diving in the deep end. Gaia free trial, here I come. Alright, so excuse the guerrilla-style filmmaking here. I just started my Gaia subscription. And we have this. We have a couple options here. I don't know what to choose. Secrets and cover-ups. Yoga meditation, alternative healing, paranormal and unexplained. That's one. I want to see what the hell this entails. Ancient origins. Yeah, sure. Alright, those are my three. And now it's just Netflix. Deep space. Symbols of the Masons. Oh boy. I'm not totally sure where to start. Look at this. 16 seasons, 412 episodes. New episodes Wednesdays. This show has been going on for 412 Wednesdays. Some of these shows have like absurd numbers of seasons and episodes. There's a whole section on the secrets of Atlantis. Wait, this is Gaia staff picks. Kubrick's Odyssey. Ooh. Is this about how Kubrick faked the moon landing? Ooh. Ooh. This one's a movie made in 2011, so it shouldn't be that hard to get through. That's probably what I'm going to start with, just because that it's so out there. Yeah, this is where I'm starting. Kubrick's Odyssey. Let's go.
Under the Masonic moon, plans were made by the bankers in the back room. The owl sees into the night, and the secret will never be told.
Okay then. My first impressions are that this movie is rather poorly made. The video quality doesn't even go up above 480p, and the audio is consistently cut up in very jarring ways. For example,
it was sometime in the fall of 1963 and offered him a deal that he could not refuse. Privy to the main secrets of an occult society that rules the earth, these imperfections can also be found in the desert backgrounds in the ape scenes in 2001, as I've shown.
Looking north in the Taurus Littrow.
Other than that, it was just an anti-NASA documentary that seems to ignore the fact that image processing produces artifacts out of random noise. Before I get too carried away, let me give you a very quick summary of the whole movie. Stanley Kubrick, a famous movie director, made Dr. Strangelove in 1964. Once the movie was released, the Pentagon was apparently so impressed by the special effects seen when the B-52 bomber plane is shown from an outside POV that Kubrick was offered a deal to fake the moon landing so that the US could get a leg up on the USSR. These were the Cold War times after all. Once he was finished with the film, Kubrick made The Shining as a confession that he staged and filmed the Apollo moon landings. After spending an hour and 10 minutes with this documentary, do I now believe in the subject matter? Some of the reasoning from The Shining felt pretty compelling, but when you place it next to the analysis he gives for the footage from the moon landing, it fails to convince me. Also, the narrator gives short stories like this that are completely unfounded.
It was sometime in the fall of 1963 or the winter of 1964 that they contacted Stanley Kubrick and offered him a deal that he could not refuse.
The fact that these short stories have 0 citations results in the narrator being forced to say things like someone at NASA or the Pentagon, which is just absurd to me.
Someone in NASA or the Pentagon saw what Kubrick had done in Dr. Strangelove with the B-52s, and admiring his artfulness, designated Kubrick as the person best qualified to direct the Apollo moon landings.
This man took an imaginary discussion and put it into a documentary that you have to pay to watch. Let's see what he has to say about the actual images taken during the Apollo missions. His most damning piece of evidence is the rear screen projection theory. The narrator argues that you can clearly see the separation line between the set the Apollo missions were filmed on and the screen behind it, but then the narrator proceeds to draw arbitrary lines across the lunar surface, saying that's where the separation is. Before he drew the lines, I tried to predict where he was going to put them, and I had a hard time getting my predictions correct because he's not picking specific points of separation. He's just drawing lines behind the astronauts and rovers. Also, notice that he chose clips with dramatic amounts of lens flare to show where these lines are. One of his ways of finding these lines is to see where the moon rocks stop being visible, thus any point past them is a rear screen projection. The thing is, the further you get away from small details like rocks on the ground, the harder it is to differentiate each pebble. Also, in this image of Harrison Schmitt from Apollo 17, the rocks appear to extend all the way to the lunar lander, stopping at the foot of that huge hill. Here's a closer image showing the same rocks much closer. And in this image, you can see rocks on a hill and at the base of it. Here's a closer image of a similar hill that has rocks and even a few small craters on it. The reason why I'm looking at Apollo 17 specifically, by the way, is because it's claimed by the narrator that NASA was over-reliant on rear screen projection during the later missions.
Although you can see the front screen projection process on every mission, the seriously revealing images are in the later missions, particularly Apollo 14, 15, 16, and, my favorite, 17.
As you can see from the images shown, the quality is crisp as hell, and there are details in the background that have gone ignored by the narrator. On the video side of things, the narrator claims that the astronauts moving slowly on the moon is proof that NASA recorded them in slow motion to make them appear like they were moving in low gravity.
If you slightly speed up the footage of the astronauts walking around on the lunar surface, they appear to be doing their business in normal speed, like they are on Earth. It is apparent that the footage has been shot in slow motion to give the effect of a low gravity situation.
This particular piece of evidence is infuriating to me. Does this guy not know what a pressure suit is? Basically, the inside of a spacesuit is filled with air to counteract the vacuum of space. Because of this, you are basically trying to fold an inflatable mattress in half every time you bend your arms or legs. The Apollo astronauts likely wanted to move around as carefully as possible so that they didn't end up falling over on the moon, because if you didn't know, it is really dangerous to fall and hard to stand back up while wearing a pressure suit. So yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about with this movie, because the entire second half is just him talking about The Shining instead of focusing on the data collected during the Apollo missions. All I want to say about this section of the movie is that this connection is just insane.
If you just look at the capital letters on the tag, you can see that it says room, R-O-O-M, and then N, and there's a small O. If we discard the small O, we're left with R-O-O-M and N. The letters on the tag come out to say moon room. Is this what Stanley called the lunar set?
And this audio mixing is absolutely horrible.
Because room 237 is symbolic of the lunar set for Apollo 11, Jack has to lie to Wendy about what is going on in the room. He tells her that nothing is going on in room 237.
Now then, this movie has taken up way too much of my time, and we still have a good couple of content chunks to watch, so back to the grind. For my second viewing of content on this website, I went for a show that I saw a preview for in a YouTube ad, Unearthing Nazca.
These beings are not closely related to any known organism on Earth.
I was excited to watch this one because it talks about alien fetuses, and, well, who doesn't like alien fetuses? This is apparently a show with 9 episodes to watch through, each one about the length of your average YouTube video. Thankfully, Gaia was kind enough to air an episode that includes content from every episode of the show as a complete story, so let's check it out. Okay, that was something. To start, this show thankfully has 1080p video quality as well as 810p, which is strange, but I'll take it. Also, you'll see this type of disclaimer on many different Gaia shows intended to remove responsibility from the network for airing shows like this. I think it's kind of strange, but I guess the network needs some way of protecting themselves from lawsuits. To summarize the show, these strange-looking mummies are found in Nazca, Peru, and this ragtag group of journalists and experts set out to analyze these bodies in as scientific a manner as possible. In the end, they find that the DNA from these mummies does not match that of any modern humans, and these smaller bodies have drastically different skeletal structures to that of humans. These findings are brought before the government, who wants no part in the scientific analysis of these bodies because they were found by a tomb raider, not an archaeologist. A university takes interest in analyzing the bodies further, and that's where the show abruptly ends. No credits, and no solid conclusion on what exactly the bodies are. What I find really interesting is that this show avoids the topic of aliens on almost all occasions except for one interview.
It looks like a mummy that has been altered to give the impression that it is not of earthly origin, that it would be an extraterrestrial mummy.
However, the show does still allude to aliens being the source of these bodies on numerous occasions. You've got this lingering shot of the moon in the sky over Peru, this shot of the Nazca lines with one depiction cheekily labeled astronaut, as well as many other much more subtle moments. There's also a couple of oddities I noticed in the footage and audio of the show. One is this guy chilling in the cave the bodies were supposedly found in. It straight up just looks like he's dead. It's really strange to me that he'd just crawl into this cave and lie down face up, hands completely limp by his sides, not moving at all. The other oddity I noticed is this guy's voice.
We have before us a body of anthropomorphic structure. It has a head, neck, thoracic cage, pelvis, and upper and lower limbs.
This is driving me insane. I know this guy's voice. I've heard it on YouTube somewhere in a voiceover video. I was really excited to look at the credits at the end to see whose voice it was, but like I said, there are none. Not a single name outside of the ones shown on screen is given. In my search to find the guy behind the voice, I went to the movie's IMDb page, but get this, the only person in the full cast is Brian Lynn, who was the narrator. I searched for the movie's credits on Google and find that you can actually watch this on Amazon Prime Video. So I go there and see that the director is frickin' Mr. Gaia himself, and the producer is Gaia himself. For comparison, this is what Tenet's Prime Video page looks like. Look at all those names, I wish I had some! I was getting so desperate that I messaged Gaia's staff to figure out who the man behind the voice was. Their response is that they would contact their team and get in touch with me via email once they had an answer. This is the reply I eventually got. In other words, it's a dead end. Not even Gaia's staff know who this guy is. If you have any idea whose voice this is, please let me know in the comments. I must put this to rest. So with that out of the way, what are my thoughts on this whole Nazca situation? Well, to tell the truth, I really don't know. I did a bit of research outside of the show, and according to most other places I've looked, these are just indigenous people who have been mummified. Does that mean the information in Unearthing Nazca is false? If that's the case, then it makes me really uncomfortable that this network would be profiting off of false information, which it actually already did with Kubrick's Odyssey. Something suddenly doesn't seem right about this network, and I'm looking forward to canceling my subscription before too long. In the meantime, we might as well look at some more shows. When I watched the ads on YouTube for this show, I was fully expecting the show to be all about Atlantis, and how a connection to this lost city explains the place of the human race in the universe.
When I was born in the colony of Atlantis, I remembered everything about our mother civilization through the stories of my grandfather in that life.
However, that is not what this show is about. For the sake of simplicity, we are only going to be looking at the first episode. In this introduction, it is explained that the host remembers past lives, and using that knowledge, he intends to explain the true nature of reality so that the viewer can find their place in the universe. If you're feeling lost and confused, you're not alone. This single 26-minute episode is really hard to follow along with because, unlike the previous shows we've watched, it's not based on science at all, and it's full of abstract concepts. I'm going to try to explain the core concept of this episode, but I apologize if I fail completely. So, this first episode is about unity, the concept that the only thing that exists in the universe is consciousness, because that's how you perceive your surroundings. If a tree falls in a forest and no one is there to see it, does it make a sound? If you asked this guy, he'd probably say no. He claims that there are 9 dimensions in the universe, and that the first one is the mind itself, and it is only from the perspective of the mind that the other 8 can be understood. However, the only way to experience the first dimension is by experiencing void.
The only way you can remember is if you forget everything you know. So that's what we call the void. That's an emptiness. It's the only place where you could possibly see everything within.
This is actually interesting because what he's talking about does have some similarities with transcendental meditation, which is what my favorite filmmaker David Lynch practices. Lynch says that the way he gets his ideas is through meditation, going on to describe the process as like fishing.
desiring an idea is like a bait on a hook.
Yeah.
It can pull them in. And if you catch an idea that you love, that's a beautiful, beautiful day. But now you have even more bait. Thinking about that small fragment, that little fish, will bring in more.
The host of Initiation talks about a similar concept, that the universe around us is formed by ideas, and that those ideas are best understood through experiencing void, i.e., through meditation.
It's like you can feel so many things that suddenly you can't feel anything, and you just are like floating in the universe and nothingness, and you realize that the first dimension is just what you project as an idea, as an imagination.
So do I believe in what this guy is saying? Nope! I believe what this guy is trying to do is take the experience of meditation and attach it to some cosmic origin. But the fact that everything he's saying is so unscientific just makes me not believe him at all. The thing that makes Lynch's interest in meditation so compelling is that he actually has something to show for the effort he has put into doing it. He's able to create beautiful films and show people the ideas that he learns and feels through his process.
People get used to a film that pretty much explains itself 100%, and they kind of turn off that, beautiful thing of intuition when they're looking at a film that has some abstractions. And some people, on the other hand, love these abstractions, and it gives them room to dream.
Rather than sharing the feelings that this state of mind can bring, this guy is trying to explain those feelings using a bizarre form of faith. To me, this show almost feels cult-like because of that. There's also a few strange things, like the fact that a civilization he was part of in a previous life used the Latin alphabet when creating words to describe these abstract concepts.
And we call that the S-H-M, Saham. We used to call the universe as the process Mahas-Saham.
This to me is one of the bigger pieces of evidence that he might be making this stuff up as he goes along, but I think I'm just going to move on and let him do his thing. Come to think of it, I think our free trial's almost up. And that's it. That's all I could bring myself to watch. Now, I know I didn't take advantage of the full 7 days of the free trial, but remember, in between watching those movies and shows, I was writing this script and also doing additional research. To close, I would like to reiterate what I said in the beginning. I am okay with anyone believing in anything as long as it is not hurting anyone else. I just wanted to take a walk on what I consider to be the wild side because it's fun. I'm glad to have gone through this quasi-spiritual journey through the strange world of conscious media. It was interesting, but also bizarre in how cagey Gaia was with the identities of the people who made Unearthing Nazca, and there's no doubt in my mind that there are other shows that they are treating with the same amount of caution. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. If you do leave a comment, please keep it respectful. All sources and music used can be found in the description below. I'm done here. See you later.